The gully. I went back to the farm in March, when the frost still came at night and the air smelled like wet leaves. The house was mostly gone, nothing but a pit of warped tin and blackened wood, and when I saw it, I thought about turning around and going back to Evan's place. But then I saw the gully. The creek had eaten another 2 feet of land since the fire. The old cemetery fence leaned over the edge like it was contemplating jumping in. I walked down there with the same feeling you get when you go through a dead relative's things, like you shouldn't, but nobody's stopping you. The bark I'd placed months ago was still there, warped and green. When I kicked it aside, the ring sat waiting in the mud, clean as a coin fresh from a drawer. The red stone caught what little sunlight there was, and for a second, I thought I saw it blink. I told myself what any reasonable man would: it's just gold. It's just something old that wants to be worth something again. The metal felt warm, but I'd already decided to stop thinking about that kind of thing. I wiped it on my jeans and slipped it back into its place under the piece of bark. I did not want a visit from Heikel tonight. I told myself I'd sell it, use the money to get back on my feet, maybe even fix my truck like I should have months ago. That night at Evans, even without the ring, I could have sworn I smelled smoke in the very late hours of the night. I jumped up, thinking the trailer had caught fire, but the air was clear. Still, the smell clung to my clothes, faint, like a candle snuffed out a few seconds before. Unable to sleep, by morning I'd made an online listing: antique family heirloom, gold with ruby, early 1900s farm find. I priced it what I thought was high, enough to make it feel special. The business. The first buyer was a college professor out of Green Bay, said he collected regional history. I mailed it in a small padded envelope, no note, no name. He sent me $1,500 through PayPal the same afternoon. 2 days later, I saw him again, on the news. His apartment had burned down overnight. The fire marshal said faulty wiring. I shuddered to think about what happened, remembering my night with Heikel. But I also knew how much I appreciated having that $1,500. So, dog-eat-dog world, I guess. Couldn't wait to check Heikel's gravesite, so I went there first thing in the morning, and sure enough, there was a glint in the mud. I didn't touch it at first, just stood there, breathing in that same faint smell of burning. The ring looked perfect again, smooth, polished, the stone clear as blood. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe just greed. But I picked it up and said out loud, "If you're cursed, you're sure a profitable one." The second time I sold it to a woman who said it was for her fiancé. She liked that it had history. I almost laughed. They found her in her bedroom 2 days later. Nobody could figure out how the fire started. I felt guilty, but less guilty than I did with the professor. Was I getting better at this? I didn't enjoy what I was doing to people, but I did enjoy the money. I'd sell the ring, watch the story hit the news, then go back down to the creek and dig it up again. It always came back, untouched, gleaming, waiting. By summer, I had money again, real money. I sold the ring 11 times, cash, always cash. Sometimes online, sometimes in person. I stopped drinking the cheap stuff and bought a new truck. The engine purred like a kitten. Evan came by and said, "I don't like what's happening with you, Gordy. Folks are talking." "Let them," I told him. "I'm just making up for lost time." He looked at me long, then said, "You remember what happened to Dad when he thought he could fix everything with money?" I told him he was being sentimental. We weren't kids anymore. That night, after he left, I dreamed of fire moving through water, flames under the creek, burning slow and blue, like the earth itself was catching. The next morning, I went out to the gully, and the air was thick, almost suffocating. The ground around the gravesite had cracked from heat, though the weather had been mild. I could smell something between ash and rain. The ring was in its usual place, as always, and I picked it up and said, "All right, one last time." A man named Richter answered my ad, said he was a land developer looking for unique pieces for an office display. Offered me 15 grand if I could deliver it in person by tonight. I didn't even hesitate. 15 grand buys a lot of forgetting.
The choice.
It was early evening by the time I got to the farm to get the ring. The air had that yellow tint it gets before a storm. The gully was deeper than ever, almost 10 feet down now, the creek running dark in the shadows at the bottom. I parked the truck by what was left of the fence and climbed down. Halfway down, my boots slipped in the mud and I fell the rest of the way. I landed hard, knee-deep in the brown water. The ring sat wedged in a root like it had been placed there for me. When I touched it, everything went quiet. No birds, no wind. The kind of silence that reminds you of the ringing in your ears. Then I smelled it. Smoke again, thick and oily. I looked up, and he was there, a silhouette against the growing shadows of the night. Heikel. He stood on the far side of the gully, same as before, but worse. Skin blackened, cracked, fire leaking through in lines like veins. His eyes were just light behind soot. "You keep selling the punishment for your own sin," he hissed. I tried to climb out. The mud pulled at me, thick as clay. "Why do you want it so bad?" I yelled, trying to sound brave but failing. He didn't answer but started limping toward me, his hand flaring up. My hands balled up in horror and the ring slipped from my fingers and rolled toward the water. I could have let it go. I swear I meant to. But when it reached the water's edge, the light caught the red stone, and it looked like a drop of blood sliding away. I could have easily crawled up the 10 feet of gully wall and escaped. Or, if I was lucky, I could make it down to the water before Heikel got there, and I could grab the ring and make it out again, if I launched myself immediately. I went for it, and quickly grabbed the ring from where it was lodged. Turning, I saw the gully bank an arm's length ahead of me, but as I lunged toward it, I heard him right behind me saying, "You choose fire," and a strong hand closed firm on my shoulder. I was absolutely horrified to see him so close. He was right there, calm, watching. Regret washed over me like a tidal wave. His burned face barely moved when he hissed, "You chose this." The air shimmered with heat. Flames ran up from the mud, crawling over me like a living thing. My clothes burned first, then the skin beneath. I could smell myself, hear the crackle like hay catching. The last thing I saw was the red stone glowing through my fingers as the world folded in on itself. The creek, the bank, the air all turning to flame. They never found me. The truck sat for weeks by the old fence, keys still in the ignition. When they finally looked down into the gully, they found nothing but mud, ash, and water. Evan came once, said my name, and something answered from the dark, a sound like old wood crumbling. He did not stay. The ring was back where it started, red stone pulsing faintly under the mud like a heartbeat. And I exist in the ashy eternity of my own choosing. Watching the small creek slowly wash out the rest of the cemetery, one grain of sand at a time in its own unhurried way. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe.